Hey y'all, come on in. It's gonna be part 3 of Ricky's wallet. We're gonna be doing the stitching today. And hopefully get this project finished up. So last video we covered the ceiling part of it, what all is involved in that. Again, this customer wanted it left natural, no color or anything of that nature, so we are pretty well done with that part of it. So now we move on to the stitching. In these kits, as I've explained before, they come completely self-contained with everything that you need to make a project, except for your tools and stuff like that. They have starter kits, basic set of tools to do that with. I think as some of the sayings go, just add water and you're ready to go. So let's see here. They even come included with a needle that you're going to need. And again, I like using these kits for projects and stuff because it's the same. If I were to go cut this out of one of my sides of leather, it would be the exact same stuff. Your liners, inserts, I think they're called, all the same thing. Let's get our needle. If you can hear, we have 2 cats in the background. Right now they have a game of tag you're it going on. And then once I get this lacing material out with those 2, you can imagine how much fun I'm fixing to have. So your kit will come contained with enough lacing to do the project. Then here's your needle. I'll try to zoom in a little bit. We'll get ready to thread it up. But these kits come also, if you haven't watched the other videos, these kits come from Tandy Leather with the instructions on how to put your needle together, how to get it started, and do your lacing. Very detailed, but I'll add a few things that help me anyway. So let's get our needle threaded. Now these things, I don't know how well you're going to be able to see that or not. Let's see if I can zoom in some for you. It's still not going to be a whole lot of help. Maybe that'll work. Now, if you look closely at them right there at the top of my thumb, you're going to see 2 indentions. Those are actually very small spikes that are on the back side portion of the needle. And those are there to actually pierce your lacing. Now what I'll do is I'll take my X-Acto knife. Kind of have to be a little gingerly with this because you don't want to come through into your fingers by any means. But I'll just split it open a little bit like that. You don't want to go too far, but you do want to have enough room in there where your lacing material will go over the top of those 2 spikes. get the end of it out here. Well, if there is an end of it. There it is. Okay. And what I'll do, I'll put that X-Acto blade in on the other side, make it a little bit easier. For me anyway, I'm right-handed. And then I'll bring the stitching thread I keep calling it thread, it's actually a lace. But you want to get it over the top of those two little pins, pricks, or whatever you want. I don't know what to call them, proper name of them, or spikes. I want to make sure you go in far enough to get it over both of them. And then I'll pull the X-Acto knife out. And what I use is I just use a pair of pliers. Get my fingers out of the way. And I'll just come in on the end of it. You can feel it when it punches through the leather. Make a little snap. I don't know if you heard that or not. That's all you need. You don't need a whole lot of pressure. I've seen people that use their mallet and do it that way, but I've found that that will bend the needle, which is something that you really don't want, or I don't want, so I have better control of it with a pair of pliers. Now you can do this several different ways if you want to, but I like to get all of my lace off of here. Depending on the size of the project, it's going to be quite a bit of lace. Some people are able to leave it on the spool. I've found it's easier for me. You just have to figure out what works best for you. But you have to pull all of this lace through your project every time. So if anybody has this left on their little cardboard spool here, I don't see how you're going to be able to do that. After you pull it through there one time, you're going to be taking all of it off anyway. I know it's not that much, but it sure seems like it, but it seems like I've got about 600 feet of lace out here, which I really don't, but when you start pulling it through, again, depending on the size of your project, you're going to think it is. Now this lace, something that I wanted to show you. You can tell that it's not a whole lot wider than what the needle itself is. So I'm not going to need to really trim the edges of it. Use this same needle when you're working, or the same size needle when you're hand stitching with the wider lacing. So in the instructions, it'll show you how to come in with your X-Acto blade. I don't know if I'm going to be able to demonstrate this or not with my fingers, but I'll turn the needle and the lace up on its side, and you'll come in with your X-Acto knife about even with the back of your needle, and you'll trim it down towards the tip of the needle. Don't come back this direction, or you're going to have a step up right there that's going to catch whenever you try to bring it through. So you want to come down towards the tip of your needle and just shave it down to the width of your needle. That's so it's easier to pull it through. And this lacing material, believe it or not, most of it anyway, is also leather. So that's what I mean. Don't be afraid to buy one of these kits, because you're getting the exact same stuff if I were to take it out of one of my hides, my full sides of leather. And it's got the step-by-steps on it. It's been a little while since I've done this style of lacing, so we'll gonna have to do a refresher course myself on it. Now when I put the inserts in, I've got the initials on my right hand side, it's facing me. But when I fold it, I'm going to fold it to where what I want to do when the customer opens this up, you can see the impression on the back side. When I put this insert in here, when it's opened up, when he's holding it, to get a card out, money, whatever, his initials are going to be facing out. And then when you fold it up, put it in the hip pocket. Most guys that I know of, they'll grab it up here like this and just drop it down in. So my pattern or my initials are facing out towards the outside of the pocket, not the inside. That's just my preference on how I do it. Now where to start, you never want to start in the fold. It's a wallet, so this is where the most activity is going to be whenever you fold it. So this stitching in here is going to take the most amount of wear. It'll still last for a while, but eventually it will wear through. Your stitching will, not the leather, or not the wallet itself. You can go in and restitch them if you want to. Nor do I like to start it out here on an end, because that's where it's going to be grabbed when you're pulling it out of your pocket, putting it back in. That's also where a lot of handling is going to be. Nor do you want to do it on one of your corners, because again, these are going to be your wear points. So what I'll do is I'll come in here on one of the flats, and I'll come in roughly halfway down. Take one of my modeling tools with a point on it, and I'll just count in the holes. 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Let's just start at 12. In from the corner. You want your pattern or your initials facing you when you start. I don't know if you can tell in this light or this camera, but you'll have the interior side of the lace that's much duller. The outside of it has a little bit of a shine to it, a little bit smoother texture. You want that facing out. And then also too, I'll show you later on as we get into it, I do the stitching with the pattern facing me, because this particular type of stitching that we're going to be doing on the interior side of it, and I'll show you that after I get a few of these done. You'll, for some reason, it'll want to lay down so much prettier out here on one side than it does the other. The inside, it kind of wants to kick up a little bit. I don't know the reason for that. Maybe it's the way you pull the loop back over. I never have figured that out in all these years. So I always have that on the inside so it's not seen. Alright, so we come back in on 12. What did we, yeah, 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And I'll go through that project, or I'll go through my project. And this is something you gotta really, you gotta really pay attention to. Make sure you use the same hole. You don't want to get 3/4 of the way around this thing just to realize you're off one hole, or you'll know as soon as you come to a corner. Uh, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 right there. I'll recount that. Okay, so there's hole number 12. And I double and triple check myself, because you'll only want to pull this, all of this lacing back out of a project just one time. Usually when you get it started, it's pretty easy to pull through, all depending on your what size lace you're using. If it's a little, that's another reason why I have a pair of pliers. It's easier for me. You can come in. If it's a little tough getting through, get your pair of pliers and pull it through. Sometimes you have to get a little ornery with it. And now you get to pull all of this through. What I do, let me zoom you back out so I can make sure I've got everything on camera for you. This is just the way I do it. Probably 100 different ways of doing it, but this is just the way I do it. But I'll take my thumb and finger and I'll hold a little bit of pressure against that lace on both sides. And I'll just start pulling it through. The reason being, I don't want it to turn over on me while I'm pulling it through the project. And you just have to keep it going through. And it'll try to curl up on you and do all kinds of fun stuff. But you just have to, the more you pull it through, the more it'll relax, and it's not so hard to get along with. It's just the very first couple of rows that you pull through when you have the most issues with it. Of course, as soon as my two cats find out that I'm doing this, then I'm going to have a lot more issues than just this. But see how it's wanting to twist on me right there? Now what I'll do is, you don't want that. I want to keep it all going the same way. Now don't pull it hard or anything like that, because you don't want to get any you don't want it to kink up on you. What I've seen also done, and I've done this too, is you can just take the other end of it and pull it through from the back side, and that's all right. But you haven't worked all of this stuff out of your lace yet. You're still going to get to do that the next time you go through it. Sooner or later, you got to come through the front side. Let me get this kind of untangled a little bit here. So I will thread it all through. It's kind of monotonous here for the first couple of times. Then after you pull it through your project 2 or 3 times, then it gets to where it's not so hard to get along with anymore. I've had people ask, well, why don't you use a shorter piece of lace? Well, you can. There's a method of how to splice this together, but then if you're not really careful on how you do your splice, then you have that showing up on your project, which I try to avoid. Well, this stuff is dry and it's pretty hard to work with, like I said at first, until you've pulled it through a few times. All right, that should be enough to get through. You wouldn't think you'd need that much lace to stitch up a wallet, but it does with this particular style. This is a perfect day for us where we live here in Texas. We've had an ice storm come through. Today's Thursday. It started on Monday. We probably got pretty close to about an inch. We don't get snow in this part of Texas. We get ice. So we've had probably pretty close to about an inch, I'd say. So anyway, we are stuck inside because here we don't really have the resources like other parts of the country where they can remove it. So we just pretty much shut down. So for days like I've had the last several days, that's a perfect time to get some work done. Get my pattern back out here. I'll try to leave this where you can see it, but I've got it all pulled through there at one time. And you'll see in step number 2, we're going to go over to the next hole and we're going to pull through again, but then you're going to leave this little dog ear, or the end of the lace. I just call it a dog ear. You're going to leave it out. Now I'll leave probably about an inch of it out, because when you get back around to here, this part as well as the end of, or the other end of it, are going to be fed down on the inside in between your insert and the outside. That's to retain the lacing so it doesn't pull back out. So usually about an inch is what I'll leave. I've found that that's plenty sufficient. So what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to go over to my chair, because this is going to get monotonous from here until I get down to the corner. When I get down to the corner, I'll show you a little trick of what I do. The main thing is, each time you go through your hole, look on the inside. Make sure you have the same number of holes. You must stay corresponding with this all the way around. All right. Go find you a place to get comfortable, get you a glass of tea or whatever your choice of beverage is. Get comfortable and let's do some lacing. I'll come back when I get to the corner. Alright guys, what I wanted to show you here, we're about halfway, approaching halfway now. But you can see how our stitching's starting to do now. We've come around 2 corners, we're starting down this long side. This long side is what I wanted to show you, because it's pretty critical. These inserts, these liners, are intended to be slightly smaller than what your outside piece of leather is. The reason for that is you want to have, when you're done, you want to have a natural fold to it. Now it will it'll stretch out some, but I just call it settling in. What I wanted to show you, this is why I mentioned be very careful that you pick up, match your holes. You can see here this needle's starting to favor the inside a little bit now. If you just stay looking at this outside, then you may get all of your holes out here but you're going to find that you're going to miss some on the inside. What it's trying to do is it's trying to draw this, it's trying to draw these two pieces of leather together. So what I've found that helps me when I start getting to this point is I'll start holding it kind of folded. I don't know if you can see all the way through or not, but my holes are continuing to stay lined up. And that's, otherwise you're going to get to undo some stitching if you miss a hole on the inside. That's why I wanted to point this out to you. But you can see how the stitching's starting to lay down now, and you can continue to work it. As you go along and this lacing gets more limber, worked in, then you'll find that you're not going to have to pull on it quite so hard. What I try to do in order to keep everything even is I'll watch how far these stitches pull back. If I can keep them somewhat uniform as I go along, it'll get even. Once your lacing gets more settled in, see now it's not quite as stiff, near as stiff as what it was when it first started. But what I'm doing from here on now is I don't pull on the lace as hard as what I did back over here, along in here. As you'll find that once this settles in and starts to get more limber, lack of a better word, then all I do is just pull it. I just pull it in. That's all I need to do. Just set it is all you want to do. Don't pull on it any harder than just a light tug, and that'll be plenty. But I judge it by watching. If I'm pulling too hard on it, then you'll see these stitches here, they'll start laying further back. It means you're getting too tight. You want to leave it somewhat loose, not just snug, okay? Because as this settles in and works and gets broke in, all of this will settle in with each other and it'll be just fine. All right, I'm going to continue on. We're not quite halfway yet. As you can tell, when I get to the end of it, then there's really not much else to show other than just continue on stitching. Just pay very close attention and pick up all of your holes, because you see how that liner is now starting to want to, maybe I can show it. But it's starting to want to gather up right here in the fold. So be very careful when you start, especially going right through here. Make sure you get all your holes lined up. All right, I'll see you again in a little bit. Okay, now that we got that done, may have put a little bit too long of a piece in there. Trying to keep this where you guys can see it, but my hands keep getting in the way. Once you have your little piece pulled out from underneath your webbing, as I call it, you want to come through, pull it out, come around to your back side, pull it through. Now what you want to be careful of right here now is you want to have an exposed loop. So you want to pull it through on the front side. But you want to have this loop right here. That's what we're going to close up. So what I'll do is I'll hold that loop off to the side, And remember, I told you this piece is going to get tucked down inside. That's what's going to help retain it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take one of my bigger modeling spoons here, and we're going to separate the layers. And hold on to the loop so it doesn't get away from me. What you can do to aid in this process is you can come in with your point, and these are not sharp points. You don't want anything sharp at this point, not until we get ready to cut it off. Get under your lacing. And pull it only halfway through. Do not pull it all the way through your insert. That's what we want right there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take the other bigger spoon, and we're just going to tuck it down inside in between the two layers. And I'll usually work it in, get it as flat as I can in there. I'll work that a little bit more. Okay, there we go. It's laying down flat on the inside in there now. On the front of it, the part of it that's facing you, you should have 3 holes exposed. On the back side where the insert is, you should have 2 holes. That's what we're after. And then you have your loop up here. Now we're going to finish it off. You'll continue your stitching just like we have been. I'm trying to demonstrate this to you because the instructions that come with the kit a little bit difficult, at least for me anyway, to see. We'll pull our lacing through. We'll go back now. And we'll pick up our cross X pattern on the back side. We'll pull it down. And see, we're closing up our gap now. Go through your next hole. Pull it through. We'll go back through, pick up that stitch, We'll pull it through. Now to blend these two together, I've still got one hole left up here on the front and none on the back. So we're going to close it up now. So what I'll do is I'll come through the loop just like so. There's the first half of it. Now this one I'm going to split the leather again. You see, I don't know if you can see that or not, but I'm not coming up through. I don't have any more holes on the inside to come through. So I'm coming in between the face leather and the insert. And we'll pull it through. We only have one half of the loop. So to close it up now, we're going to come through the loop only. And that's it. It is now joined together. And what I'll do is I'll come underneath these stitches now. Right up underneath the braid. I don't know what you want to call that thing. X pattern, whatever. And I'll try to grab about 4 of them. And lock that stitch. Get my pliers now because it's a little bit stiff again. And I'll pull it under. This will now hide up underneath the top part of your stitching once I cut it off. I'll take my X-Acto knife. This is where you want to be kind of careful. You don't want to cut any of your other stitching. If you nick it or something like that, then it won't last as long. And if you want, you can take your modeling spoon here where you cut it off and just kind of work it underneath where it's no longer visible. And that, folks, is it. When it settles in, another reason why I wanted you to encourage you to leave your stitching a little bit loose. As you can tell, this insert is now governing with the even though the insert is smaller, it's now governing a fold on it. So when it starts to fold now, if that insert was cut the same diameter as the outside, then you'd have a bunch in the middle. It'd want to come out this way instead of folding in. But once all of your stitching, I leave it a little bit loose so that as it gets worked around, it will tighten up. And I had it earlier there, but I've been working it a little bit, so I don't know if I can show this too much or not. But right up here on this end, I could start to see as I was coming around this upper corner up here, I could start to see this leather starting to pull. So I loosened up my stitch along the top up here just a little bit. You'll get the feel of it, don't worry about it. But the more you work it now, the more that stitch is going to tighten up within itself. If you do your stitching too tight to start with, then it's not going to have room to settle in. It's like a new pair of anything. You just it's got to have room to move and settle in. But what I'll do is I'll come in now that it's stitched up. I'll just come in and start working it. And you can hear it, maybe not on here, but you can feel it and hear it. It's starting to move. And then once it gets used a little bit, then it'll lay flat. When we first got done, it was approximately about like this. Now it's about like this, and the stitching is starting to tighten up. But the idea out here where your project is, or what's going to be seen, is you should not be able to tell where you stopped and started. And that's pretty much it. Mr. Ricky's wallet is done. But I wanted to show you something. What I like about this stuff is you can go to a store and you can buy those little production made wallets and stuff like that for however much they are. In material plus tax, I've got about $10 in this. If you want to sell them, that's, up to you. I'm retired now, like I said, so I just really thoroughly enjoy doing it. It's my escape. But for $10, this is my wallet. I made it over 20 years ago. It's nearly 20 years old. And you can see what I was talking about at the very start of this video. You can see where the wear is. This is where most of it occurs. That's why I try to get, don't start your stitching where it's going to be handled. Now what I can do, if I wanted to, well, maybe not. The leather itself starting to break out down here. But folks, after 20 years, and it's handmade, I just don't know what else you where are you going to go to get something that you can never replace? This wallet here from Mr. Ricky, even if I started tonight to duplicate this one, it won't be like this one. You can never, ever, ever duplicate it ever again. That's why I like to do it. That's why I want to encourage everybody who wants to. I've got a email link to me in my description down below if you want to get started in it. I hope I provided you with enough stuff to get started with, and if not, drop me an email. I will certainly help you with everything that I know how to. In the video, it's only going to be, I don't know, half hour, 45 minutes long from start to finish for you guys, but it took me probably, I don't know, 3.5 hours with the cat's help to stitch this up. So it's just the way, like I said earlier, this is my escape. When I get to working on this, I couldn't care less what's going on outside. So if you need a way to get away from your job for the day, or had a bad day or a bad week, for me anyway, I can't think of anything better. And this will last a very, very long time. So with that, that's the end of Ricky's wallet. We'll get it off to him, and as always, Judy and I like to end with don't be mean to each other, okay? We're all people. Before you say or do something to someone else, ask yourself a question. If you're not willing to treat Jesus that way, then let's not treat each other that way. And with that, we'll see you on the next one. I got a belt coming up next. See y'all later.